All right, fine. So, yeah, so we were talking about Samuel Crompton. Yeah, so Samuel Crompton's machine was Crompton's mule. So, Crompton's mule tried to rectify the issues which were there with the earlier two machines. So, we saw that spinning jenny, it had an issue with respect to the strength of the yarn. And then we saw about the Richard Arkwright's machine. The yarn that was produced, the cloth that was produced was not that strong, right? So these two issues were rectified with the machine that was introduced by Samuel Crompton, that is Crompton's mule. Okay, so it had the advantages of the two previous machines. So that is now the cloth and the yarn that was produced. Okay, it had a very good quality. So it merged the advantages of both. Just a second, I'll just admit the students. So in terms of quality and also in terms of quality, it was much better. Fine. Then in 1785 AD, we had Cartwright, he was a clergyman and he invented power loom. Okay, so this further revolutionized the weaving industry. That is, one spinner could now operate 100 spindles. Okay, so these are the series of innovations in the field of cotton textile industry. There are yet more which we'll cover. That is yeah, Whitney. Now, an American school teacher, Whitney, he invented a machine called the cotton gin. Now, the advantage of this machine was that it helped in separating the seeds from the cotton ball, okay, from the fiber of the raw cotton 300 times faster. So 300 times faster now, the seed could be separated easily from the cotton ball. And other machines were introduced for printing, for bleaching of the cloth, for dyeing of the cloth, and most important one, that is the invention of the sewing machine. It was done in 1846 AD by Elias Howe. Okay, so Elias Howe is considered to be the father of sewing machine. He was the one who introduced sewing machine. So if there is a question, whoever says cotton, whoever says industrial revolution, says cotton, you need to write all these innovations and inventions that took place in the field of cotton textile industry. Okay, so you will begin with John Kay, flying shuttle, then James Lancashire's spinning jenny. Then you will talk about water frame, very important because this is the beginning of the factory system. Then Crompton's mule, which was better in terms of both quality as well as quantity. Then power loom, then cotton gin, very important. It increased the speed of separating seeds from cotton fiber 300 times faster. And the last one was the sewing machine introduced by Elias Howe. Okay. Now, the next important question that comes usually from this topic, many times it has come, impact of industrial revolution. So whenever there is a question on impact of industrial revolution, you need to analyze, you need to write both the points, positive as well as negative. Okay. So when we talk about the positive impact of industrial revolution, the first positive impact is dominance of industrial sector. Now, up till now, British economy was dominated by agriculture. Agriculture had major contribution in the GDP of English economy. But with the advent of industrial revolution, British economy came to be dominated by industrial sector rather than agricultural sector. Okay, so the share of agricultural sector in the gross domestic product declined and the share of industrial sector increased, and that resulted into emergence of Britain as one of the top ranking industrial economy of the time. Okay, so that is the first positive impact. Second positive impact is urbanization. Okay, so the development of the industrial sector resulted into a momentous, or you can say a drastic change in the condition of life of that time. It increased the overall national wealth of income, which had a big impact on the standard of living of people. It raised the standard of living of people, made life more and more comfortable, and that ushered into urbanization. Even we see that migration was a very peculiar feature. People from urban areas, from rural areas started migrating to urban areas. So that was also a part of urbanization. Then the next important thing is growth of population. Okay, so we see that drastically England ka population increased during this period of industrial revolution. Now, why? Because of urbanization, it resulted into better standard of living, and that resulted into prevention of diseases, right? If your standard of living enhances, so you will have access to the better quality of things, and that results into checking the various diseases. Okay, so because of which death rate declined and birth rate was high, so death rate declined, so it was mortality induced growth of population. Okay, mortality induced matlab mortality rate kam ho gaya and death rate was increasing only, so that resulted into increase, overall increase in the British population. Then we see that emergence of important industrial towns which became the hubs of industrialization in England, like Liverpool, Birmingham, Leeds, Glasgow, Sheffield, and especially Manchester. So Manchester became the cotton textile center or cotton textile hub of Britain, and today Ahmedabad in India is referred to as Indian Manchester. Okay, so all these are the positive aspects of industrial revolution: dominance of industrial sector, urbanization, then growth of population and growth of towns. Okay, now let us try to understand what are the negative aspects of this industrial revolution. So जैसे इंडिया में हुआ with the advent of British, that the handicraft industry was completely ruined and destroyed, same thing happened even in England. Loss of traditional jobs. Okay, so traditional handloom weavers, they could no longer compete with this mechanized machine made products, and that resulted into complete destruction of the handicraft industry. Second thing, exploitation. So at that time, factory system was quite new, and there was no awareness about any laws being made for workers. Okay, so there were no laws for laborers, no minimum wages law. ऐसा कोई system नहीं था that you have to work only 8 hours a day or you need a weekly holiday, because for the first time in the world, this was the beginning of the jobs, like factory system, properly going to a factory and working there. So it was just a beginning. So as a result, there were no concrete there were no concrete laws, and that resulted into exploitation of workers. Okay, people, due to absence of any concrete laws, people had to work for longer hours under extremely harsh conditions. Plus there was no law on minimum wages, so the wages were not at all uniform. Apart from that, they mainly recruited women and children. Okay, so child labor is considered to be one of the significant features of industrial revolution and negative feature of industrial revolution. Okay, now why women and children, they were employed in these wages? Because they could be hired for very low wages, उनको कम पगार में उनसे काम करवा के ले सकते हैं. With that intention, women and children were employed in these factories, and children, itne chote chote bachcho ko they used to put into the machines, and they used to tell them to clean the machines and all. So this was the period of exploitation of child laws. Okay, that is especially increase in the child labor. So that is one of the negative aspects of industrial revolution. Then the third aspect we can talk about, stress and strain. Now workers, as I mentioned, they had to labor for many hours. There were no rules and regulations. Often they used to work for more than 12 hours a day, sometimes even 14 hours a day, no weekly holiday. Later on, they started giving one holiday, that is once in a week there used to be holiday. But before that, throughout the week they had to work. And factory workers, okay, they were being supervised by the strict managers. So life was run by the clock. There were managers, those who used to keenly observe how they are working, are they productive. So basically clock ruled life in these meals, and work was also quite monotonous, like daily you are coming for 12 to 14 hours, you are doing the same work. So life became very much monotonous, and that resulted into increase in stress and strain. And the outcome of this industrial revolution is, then we see that people started protesting in England, and uska outcome tha कि different unions, the birth of trade unions and the birth of different legislations with respect to industrial laborers and all. Okay, so that is the outcome of industrial revolution. Next important negative impact is overcrowding. Okay, so we say that ki slums is the feature of Mumbai especially, right? Mumbai is very famous for Dharavi and all, but the same feature was seen in British cities during the time of industrial revolution. Okay, so people from villages, they migrated to the towns, and they could not afford to stay in big apartments. So as a result, they used to stay in small slums, where the conditions were extremely pathetic, unhygienic, and that resulted into widespread epidemics. So on one side, we saw that there was an urbanization, there was an increase in the standard of living, but at the same time, there was overcrowding and growth of slums. So even if you see Mumbai में certain areas में slums है, but certain areas are developed areas. Okay, the same form may in Britain also, in British cities also, certain areas were developed, urbanized, but certain areas had slums as their features, and that resulted into widespread epidemics. Okay. The next important reason of the impact of industrial revolution was that it resulted into increased contact between industrialized and non-industrialized world. Now, these countries, England, in order to upkeep its system of production, it was always in search of new markets. And definitely, where were these markets? These markets were in the underdeveloped countries of Asia and Africa. So that resulted into increased contact with the industrialized and non-industrialized country, and this contact was not at all based on equality. They were mainly interested in these countries, that is of Asia and Africa, for raw material and as a markets, which we had seen in one of the reasons, that is demand for raw materials and export markets made the colonial powers to look for more and more territories to colonize. So one of the outcome or immediate negative impact of industrial revolution is race for colonies. And jaise industrial revolution started spreading to other European countries, even they wanted colonies in order to get raw material and sell their finished products. So industrial revolution is considered to be one of the major reasons for colonization, and colonization ka one step is imperialism. Okay, so industrial revolution played an important role in the emergence of imperialism, whereby the colonial powers tried to establish a much stronger control over the colonies by use of military power, direct rule, and rule by intermediaries. Take example of India. British came to India with an intention of trade and commerce. That is, they wanted to use India as a colony. But then they saw that the ground is favorable to rule this country by using the military. So they started invading on the Indian territories, on Indian provinces, and one by one, Indian territory was brought under the British rule, and then they started practicing imperialism. So this is a process. Industrial revolution led to colonization, demand for colonies, and that in a way gave birth to imperialism. Okay, so these are all the negative impacts of industrial revolution. So this is all about industrial revolution. I hope the chapter is pretty clear. Very simple. If you see the nature of questions that have come, we have covered all the questions. Why did industrial revolution first occur in England? So we have covered all the causes. Discuss the quality of life of the people. Here you have to give both the positive aspects, urbanization, how it led to the increase in the standard of living, and at the same time, you are going to talk about stress and strain. You are going to talk about the growth of slums and the widespread epidemics. So both the points you are going to mention. Whoever says IR says cotton. We have covered all the innovations in the field of cotton textile industry. And the last question, explain the main features of IR and discuss its impact on the society. So main features matlab, you are going to explain this slide. Main features means what is industrial revolution? Okay, what are the main features? That is handmade say we converted to machine made